So your name is Avishai,
That's right.
and you're originally from?
France.
Okay. And when did you move to Israel?
I moved 2 years ago.
Okay. To join the army on purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to do something for Israel. As a Jew, I felt the country was important to every Jews in the world, and I reckon everyone has to do their bits. It could be donation, it could be anything. For me, it was the army, and it was a really great experience, and met a lot of good guys in there. People from all over the world. People from England, people from France, from the US, everywhere. Even
Oh, so you were with a group of people who were all
no,
other immigrants?
It was really in the regular army. It was really with everyone, with the Israelis too. But in my unit, there was a lot of foreigners because we need to speak a couple language. And I speak French and English myself, so it was really useful in my position. So that's why I ended up in this unit. And this happens that in this unit there's a lot of foreigners as well.
So tell me about the unit.
So it's called the Kogat, which deals with all the Palestinian territories. And I was based out in the Matpash. We call it the Matpash at the Erez border.
Erez.
And I was a diplomatic coordinator, so all the diplomatic delegation that would cross into Gaza would have to speak to me before, and then I would write a report whether to agree or not to agree to let them through, and it would be sent first to the major of the base, then the general, and then ultimately to Bibi Netanyahu. So that was.
Oh, he has to sign off on it?
Yeah,
Really?
most of them. So all my draft ended up in Bibi's hand at some point.
Interesting. Wait, so can you tell us what the criteria are? Like, what are you judging based to let someone in or not let someone in?
Well, usually the diplomats, they have access to everything, but we sometimes take care of also the NGOs, and that's when it comes tricky because there's so many NGOs to go to Gaza that we have to research them. We have to. We don't know all of them. There's a few that are pre-approved already that we know, so those ones are easy. But the ones, there's so many that we don't know. There's NGOs created every day around the world, especially in Europe and in Ramallah as well. And we have to check them with the Shabak, with the Shin Bet, which is the country's inside intelligence.
Intelligence, yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. And the NGOs, it was always tricky because we never knew on what side they are. Sometimes they're there really to help the people, the actual civilians. Some of them, they're just there like to offer propaganda for Hamas and anti-Israeli and just like spread anti-Israeli sentiment all over Gaza to the civilians and everything. So we can't have that.
Like what do you mean? Like what would they do?
Well,
give an example. You don't have to give a name, just an example of something they were going to do.
An example, actually, I can give a name. It's they call it the Jasmine Revolution, coming from the Arab land. And those ones, they would call Israel an apartheid state. They would call it. There was nowhere a reconciliation point, and this is the kind of NGOs on a conflict that's already heated. That we don't need those NGOs like to make it worse. So those guys from Italy, we didn't let them through. They actually came from Egypt on the Rafah border, and they were stuck into Gaza because they closed the Rafah border and they needed to go back to Italy, and they wanted to go through Israel. And we thought it would be a security problem if they had to cross into Israel, even just to go to Ben Gurion in a day. It wasn't working out for us because we didn't agree on what they're doing over there. They're not helping anyone really. And this is one case, but there's so many cases. And some NGOs, they only last maybe a year, but the damage that they do is sometimes irreparable. And that was the case for this one and for other ones too.
Okay. So did you come into contact with people in Gaza?
I did, yeah. Some people don't know this a lot, but you have a lot of people from the West Bank that actually goes to Gaza to visit family, and we give them permits. So I've spoken to them. Most of them are, from what I saw, but as a soldier, I don't know if really they would express themselves freely because you're a soldier, you're wearing a uniform, you're carrying your gun. But most of them, they were like pretty much the basic Palestinian would be moderate, I would say. I don't know after, once they're in Gaza, when they're with friends or in family, or if they're in politics, or what happens. But we did get into contact. It usually is smooth. Some people would talk to us, some people would not talk to us or look at us. It felt quite weird, growing up in Europe to be exposed to this, but it was okay.
Okay. Did you come into contact with people, Gazans themselves?
Yeah. That's also something that people say, and people really think, especially in Europe, that people are actually stuck in Gaza, which is not true at all. Because you have the Allenby Bridge, which is a bridge that goes from Gaza to the West Bank, and if you have the appropriate permits, you can do that pretty much every day. There's a terminal there, and
Sorry, again, so people in Gaza can go, let's say, to Jordan?
they can go to Jordan. They can go to Judea and Samaria from the Allenby Bridge.
But my understanding is it's very difficult, no?
It is difficult, but only if you do every steps. It's a long process, because it's obviously it's the army that takes care of it. So any process, even within Israel, it's a long process, even for Israelis. So it is long, but it's not complicated. And if you have nothing to hide, or if all your intentions are good, you're going to cross eventually. I've seen many cases. The terminal is built to let through about 1 million people a day. It's really well done. The staff over there they're pretty good. So yeah, I come across them, and actually a doctor that I knew that was always going to visit some of his relatives in Ramallah. I've seen him a couple of times. Once you have the permit as well, you can do whatever you want, and they can also go. Well, now it's closed, but they can also go to Egypt with the appropriate permits. So Gaza is not like a jail cell where you can't get out of.
Well, they if I understand from the little bit I have heard from Gazans, they claim that Israel makes it impossible to leave Gaza.
Difficult, not impossible. Difficult, yeah. They make it difficult for actually anyone that wants to go into Gaza, even people from abroad. We make it difficult for the NGOs sometimes. But once
why? So explain why.
Well, there's a lot of security issues that has to be dealt with before we can let anyone out or in. If there was not such terrorism, maybe things would be smoother as well. So it's always based on security, pretty much. As far as I know, I've seen people getting a permit in 2 months. So it's not, when I lived in the US,
can anyone technically, like, I know people in Gaza.
Yeah.
And they're, let's assume that they're, in their 20s or something like that, and they are not politically involved. Mm-hmm. Can they just get a permit for the idea of going to Jerusalem, for example?
Yeah, we had cases. We have students that actually study from Gaza that studies in Israel. There's cases of students in Gaza that goes to France, a lot of them, through the French Institute. So yeah, there's been cases like this.
So there's cases of students who study in Israeli universities?
There's cases of Gazans studying all around the world, including in Israel. If you have the right permits, that's not a problem.
Okay. So in theory, anybody can really apply. You don't have to be part of a special...
In theory, yes. I'm not saying like you're going to get it, but it's not impossible.
Okay. Okay, from your, let's push this a bit.
Okay.
I do know that like some peace workshops, they don't exist anymore pretty much because they just became too complicated, but there were peace workshops, let's say, they would have between Israelis and Palestinians, and they would invite Gazans, and there would often be, someone would say no. Now it's hard to know if it was Hamas, the PA, or Israel.
It's usually never is the PA. Most of the time it's the Hamas and Israel. Hamas have very strict laws about what Gazans can do and not do. For instance, recently there was an aquatic park in Gaza that was destroyed. I think the money came from a Dutch NGO or something, or actually from the government, maybe from the Dutch government. I can't remember. They built like an aquatic park just for
water slides and
for people to get their minds off things. But there was an issue with Hamas. I mean, the problem that they had on their side is that there was too much mixing between women and men. Mm-hmm. So they destroyed that, and that's one that's one example of what Hamas can do on its own civilians. They literally control their lives. The people in Gaza, even though they didn't vote for Hamas, so they don't believe in their doctrine. They have to follow their rule, and it's enforced. And the way it's enforced, it's violent sometimes.
I've been told by people in Gaza that to go to, let's say, the water park, or there's hotels there that have pools, or even places that give out food, like through not UNRWA, but like other places that give out food. You have to be a Hamas member you have to be part of Hamas.
You have to. It's actually true. Yeah, you have to be a part of the party.
Yeah, to go to certain places.
Yeah, I think they have a card or something that shows that you're from the party, and that's how they stay in power. Now they have a problem with Islamic Jihad, which is not a good solution for the Gazans either. The only solutions for them is Fatah, if Fatah comes back into power, because other than that, I don't know how they're gonna ever. Even if the blockades ends tomorrow with Hamas in power, it's just another theocracy in the region, and that's not helpful for anyone, not for us, not for them.
I also, just to add to this, all this, I should mention, is perceptions of people. As you said, like for example, getting permits, as the person who gives a permit, the perception is that you can't get a permit. And you're saying, well, it is possible. You just have to jump through certain hoops, and it's bureaucracy, and you can't be involved in any sort of violent political activity, all that sort of stuff. So it could be, I don't know if this is true, but the what people tell me who are anti-Hamas, that Hamas does blah blah blah. It could be perception mixed with reality. I don't know. I didn't actually experience it, so
it could be, but it's also. When Hamas, for example, when Hamas came into power in Gaza after the withdrawal in 2005, was it? The terminal that is in the air crossing was built for a lot of people to cross, because there was a factory where a lot of Gazans was working on the Israeli side, and it was Hamas who, when they came into power, that decided that the Gazan would not work in Israel, and the terminal is pretty much useless now, because the people it was made for a lot of people to cross every day, and that decision didn't come from us. So now we have a huge terminal that was supposed to host and let through people, millions of people a day, and now there's maybe like 100, 150 a day that crosses. So that's the influence that the Hamas can have on its own citizen, stopping them from working in Israel, for example, stopping them from going to get appropriate permits, because we do need, at some extent, also the Hamas authorization. Israel technically doesn't speak to Hamas, we speak to the PA that speaks to Hamas. But that's why it's so slow sometimes. Maybe they should look on their own side as well, and not only on our side sometimes. But I can understand, though, the Israeli administration is also very slow sometimes. I've experienced this myself, and I'm an Israeli, so I understand.
You're telling me before that you said you have stories or something that. What shocked you when you were there?
What shocked me the most is actually a story that my captain told me. So an officer, I was myself an NCO, we call it Mashak. NCO is a non-commissioned officer, and my captain told me one day that during the Operation Pillar of Defense, there was a lot of NGOs calling us, and a lot of even the government as well, calling us, saying there's a drought in Gaza, there's a lack of food, there's a lack of electricity, there's a lack of everything. So what they did is, it comes under our obligations in the COGAT to supply those things and to know what's missing, because under the blockade is technically legal, but it also means that the country that does the blockade has to provide for everything there. And so we said, because we don't speak to Hamas, we said to the PA, talk to the people in the Hamas and give us a list of everything that the people need. And what shocked me the most is that what my captain said, and he showed me the list, 75% of what they asked was candies and soda, and just nothing that's, you would think it would be rice, it would be water, it would be those kinds of things.
So what did you understand from that?
I understand that from that, the pressure that's put on Israel and the perception that the outside world has of Gaza as a place where you don't have food, where people die of hunger, which actually I don't think anyone ever died of hunger in Gaza, is not as a bad place, not such a, it's not the worst place on earth. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And sometimes the NGOs, they make it seem worse than it is. The UN said itself that in Gaza, there's no humanitarian crisis. It's a fact. And you have dozens of countries around the world where they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have electricity, they don't have shelter, they don't have any of this, and they don't get half of the help that the Gazans get. And the Gazans don't use that money properly. 75% of the Gazans are employed by the state. And most of them, they don't actually work. It's fake employment. And they send the bill to UNRWA, and UNRWA keeps paying it. Billions of dollars that goes every year into this. And
my perception from speaking to people in Gaza, and this isn't exactly what they told me, but my perception after a lot of different conversations is that there's lots of food. Food isn't the issue.
It's not the issue.
And there's water, meaning maybe not from the taps, or drinkable water isn't very good, but you can get bottled water everywhere. The issue is they don't have any money to pay for any of it, because most people aren't working, mostly young people. So the issue is an economic issue as opposed to a...
No, absolutely. I mean, it is economical. I mean, at the end of the day, you can have because there's like 200 to 400 trucks that crosses into Gaza every day. Mm-hmm. One of my mates in the army, that was his job to let through all the trucks coming from the port of Ashdod to the Kerem Shalom, the other terminal for the trucks. Mm-hmm. I visited myself. I know what it's like. I've seen the trucks going in. I know it's real. Some of the things, I know for a fact that some of the things are free. For example, there's a lot of food banks run by the UNRWA where you don't need to pay anything. But the problem is they need jobs. Those people need jobs. And there's cases where farmers can't sell the stuff outside of Gaza because Hamas won't let them. Let's say there's a guy who grows salads or something, whatever, and he wants to sell it to the Jordanian market because it's better money, so then it's income for the family. But Hamas wouldn't let them because it has to, for them, in the politics, it has to stay within Gaza, so it's a cheaper price. But the problem is you don't run an economy like this by not letting anything go and everything in that you can't buy. So that's the problem that they have to solve on themselves pretty much, because as far as we know, there's nothing we can do to make the economic growth better in Gaza. It's not a country anymore. We're not involved in there anymore. So they have to do it for themselves.
Okay. You might not know anything about these rumors that go around the internet, but let me try and think of some of them. They say that 90% of the water, fresh water, is not drinkable. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard those rumors. I know there's water that is used for. There's two types of water that Israel sends to Gaza. Because again, the water doesn't come from Gaza; it comes from Israel. There's water that they use for agricultural purposes. So it's
grey water. It's called.
So the water is this water I know about. I know the water on tap is not grey, but it's not any less. It's not worse than the one you can drink in some places in Israel. For example, I'm from Eilat. In Eilat, you have to have filters to your fridge or the tap or whatever, because the water is not so good if you drink large amounts of it. Mm-hmm. The problem that there is, there actually a lot of European government that send money to build a water
purification.
Yeah, absolutely. Center in Can Yunis, I think it's called. Yeah, Can Yunis. It's a small city, and the money was never. It was used for something else in the end. So there's a problem of logistics in terms of money. I don't know how they spend the money, but they get a lot of money, and no one knows where it goes really. Maybe it goes into bank accounts in Switzerland somewhere. We all know that Yasser Arafat ended up with $5 billion, I think, on his bank account on his death. His wife is actually living in the south of France now. People see her. I'm from the south of France. I haven't seen her myself, but I know people that seen her in the shops and everything. So there's in most Arab countries, there's a problem of money management, and until that's corruption. until that's solved, you can have all the plans for the water, for example, for the electricity, for all that stuff. You can make the best plans and have the help of the UN, of the European Union, or any country for that matter. But in the end, if it's not organized, you're not going to be able to do anything.
Okay. The other one was there was a flood in Gaza during the winter when we had the strong rains.
Yeah, I was.
Hopefully you can hear.
I was on base there.
Oh, okay. So the rumor in Gaza was that Israel destroyed a dam somewhere in Gaza purposely to flood whatever was flooded. I'm not sure which area.
The flood wasn't like. Yeah, okay, go on. Sorry.
No, but that's I'm wondering. I've never even heard of a dam. There's no dams in Israel, so I'm not sure how there's a dam in Gaza, and I can't imagine how or why Israeli soldiers would destroy the dam to flood Gaza.
You know what? I don't think even a question like this. It's beyond ridiculous. I don't think it even deserves an answer really, because this is ludicrous. There's no point doing this, especially when you know that we also need water here. there's a water problem everywhere. We wouldn't let that happen for anyone. That could be Gaza or the Judea, Samaria. It makes no sense at all to me.
Okay.
So, I haven't heard the rumor either.
Okay. What else about Gaza?
I was also you were asking me about the things that I was shocked as well before. What I experienced is like you have diplomats and countries sending money, and it's all fair and good when it comes from Europe, because they can spare it pretty much for most of the countries. But I had some surprises when I saw diplomats spending a lot of cash in Gaza from states such as India, for example, and there are people in India who are worse off than people in Gaza right now.
Yeah.
A lot of the soldiers, when they finish their service, they go to India, and what I can make of it, I've never been myself, but you have people literally dying on the streets there, in Bombay or in all.
Well, what kind of things do they do in Gaza? What do you mean by?
Well, I mean the diplomats, they go there for a reason. It almost feels like all those diplomats, it's like a fashion show. Everyone has to be represented in Gaza because there's cameras rolling, so you want to be involved. But whenever the diplomats are going in Gaza, it's most of the time, 80% of the time, is actually to see the projects that they want to create for the Gazans. And that comes from the budget of their country. So when you have a country like France or England or you have Australia or other countries that are well off, it makes sense. But when you have a country like India and you have Pakistan, sometimes I've seen like some African countries as well, and you think you can't even take care of your own, and you want to take care of others. To me, it didn't make sense. I don't know if it's everywhere like this, but that was quite shocking to me, especially. Yeah.
Okay. I can't remember any other rumors about Gaza.
Yeah, there's so many though. It's
well, if you think of any that something you thought before, and then you went, okay.
It's not Gaza, but I've heard something crazy that was in the papers in Egypt. That there was in Sharm el Sheikh. There was I think it was last year. They had a problem with a shark that was sick and that was attacking people. And in the papers it says that Israeli kind of they sent that shark somehow, and they trained that shark to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's a common one.
I thought that was like ludicrous. It's beyond ridiculous.
We know they say in the West Bank that the settlers, the Jewish settlers, trained the wild pigs to destroy the fields.
I've heard that one, yeah.
Which, first of all, how do you train a wild pig? I'd like to know.
Yeah, if it's wild, I don't know if a pig can be trained, really.
Pigs are smart, but still. And then settlers are all religious. They can't touch a pig.
That's, yeah, it doesn't, like... all those rumors, they're so big. The bigger the lie, I think the bigger the lie, and the more the people are going to believe it. It's amazing how people can believe those stuff.
Fantastical thinking.
You would do that
Magical thinking.
In a Western country. People would laugh at you. But I don't know.
Okay, so I guess my final question to you is: do you agree with the blockade, personally?
Personally, or
Personally.
from my standpoint in the army?
No, you yourself. No, give whatever.
Okay. Well, I mean, like the blockade as it is today, I think it's only fair that we check whatever's going into Gaza, because whatever they receive, they can make it into a weapon. And a lot of things goes through, like I said before, there's like a lot of trucks are crossing every day. They can ask, they can require for things. A lot of people don't know this. And I think everything that they most need, they have. And now to have like open borders where anything can go through, like the missiles incident that we had, a ship coming from Iran that was supposed to stop in Sudan that had missiles that was discovered, and it was supposed to go to Gaza. See, we can't have that. We can't have that. It's already a problem in the south. I can only imagine what a problem. That's why it takes so long to find a peace agreement in the West Bank, because it's a problem in the south of Gaza. We never know what's. When we left Gaza, we thought it would be all good. It turns out that the whole place turned into a mess. Hamas came to power. And if the same thing happens in the West Bank, we can't have that, because the West Bank is so close. I think it's 20 kilometers from Tel Aviv. So if they have rockets going into the airports and in Tel Aviv, the economy goes down and everything crumbles. So the blockade in Gaza for now, until they change it's not unlimited. That's what I mean. It's not forever. They just have to change their policies over there, and then the blockade will be lifted off. And I think the other countries as well would disapprove. For now, there's not many countries that disapprove the blockade, given the circumstances of the ruling in Gaza. But tomorrow, if they have a honest, government there and a fair one, the whole world will go against us if we keep the blockade going. And I think we wouldn't let that happen as well.
Anything else you want to
No, I just
tell about your experiences?
Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, all that it was really interesting, and I hope the situation solve itself out. I mean, it's not going to solve itself out just like that, but I hope. There's nothing we can do now on the Israeli side, because we don't have any access to Gaza anyway. We can't go in there. We don't talk to Hamas. They don't talk to us. So there's nothing that we can do. The only thing that it's the people that live in Gaza that can do something. And I really hope they make a change, because it's not this politics that they have right now. It's not going anywhere. The rockets that they send doesn't do any damage in Israel anymore. This politics hasn't worked. It's been a failure, and I think they should change that. And I hope the people outside of Israel, they see that as well.
It's unlikely. I mean, from what people tell me who live in Gaza, if I take
no, right now the Hamas
they're too afraid.
The Hamas holds it. You can't go against Hamas. It's like going into Zimbabwe and going against Mugabe, and you can't do that.
Yeah, I know some people who are in jail. According to them, I don't know how true it is, but according to them, they're in jail for being on Facebook with Israelis.
Well, that surely can happen. You can be in jail for many reasons. You can be killed for many reasons. That's even worse. I mean, if you're in jail, you're quite lucky, because you have people getting killed. And no one cares in the world about this. No one talks about this. They always talk about like an incident happens on the border or something, which sadly happens. It happens on the Israeli side. It happens on the Gazan side. But they never speak about the treatment of Hamas to their own people. This has left the building. You have reporters without boundaries. They're all over the place there. They never give those reports. So maybe they do the reports and no one reads them, or it never shows up on the paper. So I really hope that the journalists start doing their job over there, and not only criticizing one side, also seeing what Hamas is doing to their own people. Yeah, that's pretty much it.